A billionaire disguised as a driver to pick up his son. What the boy confessed in the car left him in tears. Richard Grant's name lit up the New York skyline. He was the billionaire who built an empire from nothing, a man who measured success in towers of glass and deals inked before breakfast. In the city, Richard was a legend of power. But power has a way of hollowing out the spaces where love should live. Inside his penthouse, Richard's 11-year-old son, Jordan, moved like a quiet shadow. The boy was bright and thoughtful, carrying his sketchbook everywhere like armor. He filled its pages with superheroes, comic strips, and imaginary worlds where fathers always showed up, where promises weren't broken. Whenever Richard walked into a room, Jordan's shoulders stiffened. The boy would close his sketchbook quickly, as if his drawings were secrets his father had no time to see. Richard thought his promises, "I'll make it next time, son," were enough. He believed success in the boardroom excused his absence at home. But Jordan had already learned the truth. Those words were just placeholders, empty tokens given instead of time. The weight of loss made it worse. Jordan's mother had passed away years earlier, leaving a void money couldn't fill. The boy had a driver to take him to school, tutors to guide his studies, and a home stacked with luxuries. But what he wanted most, his father's presence, was never on the schedule. At school, Jordan carried the invisible burden of being the billionaire's son. Teachers spoke to him with a mixture of pity and expectation. Classmates whispered that he had everything, yet none of them understood what he lacked. Jordan kept quiet, sketching in the margins of his notebooks, and venting heroes who looked like fathers he wished he had. And so the days repeated. Richard climbed higher into the clouds of power, while his only son walked further into silence. Father and son shared a roof, but not a life. It was well past midnight when Richard found himself wide awake in the kitchen of his penthouse. The city lights glittered through the glass walls, but his world felt darker than ever. He sat at the marble island, a mug of untouched coffee warming his palms, and scrolled through the photos glowing on his phone. Birthdays. School plays. Basketball practices. Smiles frozen in time. Jordan was always there. Richard was not. He saw the spaces where he should have stood, an empty seat at the recital, a blank spot on the bleachers, the chair at dinner left unfilled. His empire had grown taller every year, but so had the wall between him and his son. A thought pressed against his chest like a stone: he had outsourced fatherhood. A driver dropped Jordan at school. Assistants arranged playdates. Gifts were sent in Richard's name, wrapped in silver bows, while he remained a ghost in boardrooms half a world away. He had given his son everything, except himself. Richard's eyes drifted to the sketchbook Jordan had left on the counter earlier that day. He opened it gently, half afraid of what he might find. The pages weren't filled with palaces or cars or skyscrapers. They were filled with heroes. And among them, always, a father figure, drawn taller, stronger, never absent. A father who never broke promises. The realization cut deeper than any business loss. For the first time in decades, Richard Grant admitted to himself that he was failing where it mattered most. And then, a strange idea took hold. It didn't arrive like lightning, it crept in slowly, almost shy. If he wanted to know what his son truly felt, he would have to leave behind the armor of wealth. No chauffeur. No suits. No name that carried weight in the city. Just a man. Just a father. The next morning, Richard borrowed a dented sedan from an employee who asked no questions. He placed a rideshare decal on the windshield and pulled on a faded jacket. The fabric smelled faintly of dust and old winters. Lowering a baseball cap over his face, he studied his reflection in the mirror. For the first time in years, he didn't see a billionaire. He saw a man rehearsing humility, hoping his son might finally reveal the truth he had been hiding all along. The afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the courtyard of Jordan's elite private school. Luxury SUVs and sleek black sedans lined the curb, their polished doors swinging open as children spilled out with chatter and laughter. Chauffeurs in pressed uniforms waited with doors ajar, calling names like practiced scripts. In the middle of it all sat a scuffed, ordinary sedan. Its paint was dull, its seats cracked. Behind the wheel, Richard Grant kept both hands pressed to 10 and 2. The baseball cap shadowed his face. His heart pounded harder than it ever had in any boardroom. From the sidewalk, he heard them, the whispers. A group of mothers exchanging knowing glances. "Never see his dad," one murmured, shaking her head. "Always the driver," another added, "not cruel, just certain." Nearby, two older boys leaned against a fence. "Must be nice, rich kid like him," one muttered, the other smirked. "Yeah, but you can't spend time like Cash." The words hit Richard like blows, but he kept his eyes forward. Then he saw him. Jordan stepped through the gates, backpack hanging heavy on his shoulders, his ponytail thick curls bouncing as he walked. He scanned the line, searching for the familiar black car. It wasn't there. Instead, his gaze landed on the battered sedan idling by the curb. He hesitated. His small hand tugged the backpack strap higher. For a moment, Richard feared he would walk right past. But Jordan stopped, frowned, and stepped closer. Richard tapped the horn once. A soft, forgettable sound. The kind a stranger would make. Jordan leaned down, peered through the window, then glanced back at the school gates. With no better option, he opened the door. The vinyl seat squeaked under his weight as he slid inside, hugging his backpack tight. A stuffed rabbit poked from the zipper, its ear frayed, worn smooth from years of being held. Richard noticed instantly, it was the same toy his late wife had given Jordan before she passed. The boy still carried it, still clung to it, even here. Richard swallowed hard, forcing his voice into something rough and distant. "Where to?" he asked. Jordan gave the address automatically, eyes fixed on the window. His reflection in the glass looked older than 11, guarded, practiced. Richard's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he pulled away from the curb. For the first time in years, the billionaire drove his own son home. The sedan moved slowly through the late afternoon streets, the hum of traffic blending with the steady rattle of the old engine. Richard kept his posture stiff, hands locked at 10 and 2. Behind him, Jordan sat pressed against the window, backpack hugged to his chest, his sketchbook balanced carefully on his knees. Outside, the world felt alive in ways that pressed against the boy's silence. Children raced each other on bikes, shouting through bursts of laughter. A father bent down to tie his daughter's shoelaces, kissing her forehead before sending her running toward the park. At every red light, Jordan's eyes lingered on scenes like these, ordinary, forgettable to most, but precious to him. Richard tried to bridge the silence. "Long day at school?" His voice came out low, roughened by the disguise. Jordan gave a small shrug, still looking out the window. "Just regular." The car jolted over a pothole, making the stuffed rabbit dangle out of his bag. Its ear was worn thin from years of being held. Jordan smoothed it gently, not looking down, his fingers moving as if by instinct. Richard cleared his throat again, searching for a way in. "You've got friends waiting for you?" This time Jordan lifted his eyes, meeting the rearview mirror for just a moment. His gaze was steady, older than his years. Then he looked away. "Not really," he said. "Everyone's busy with their families. I just go home." The words fell heavy. Not bitter, not angry, just flat. Rehearsed, as though he had said them too many times before. The streetlights flickered on, casting pale circles across the windshield. Richard's chest tightened. He gripped the wheel harder, willing himself not to fill the silence with excuses. For once, he needed to hear his son, not himself. Finally, he asked, his voice quieter, almost trembling. "If you could change one thing, just one, what would it be?" Jordan stayed silent for a long moment, watching the blur of neon signs and corner shops slide past. Then, without turning his head, he whispered the words that cut deeper than any boardroom defeat. "I'd change how much I see my dad." The car rattled over a crack in the pavement, filling the silence with its low hum. Richard kept his cap pulled low, his eyes locked on the road. He dared not look back, afraid one glance would betray him. Jordan's voice broke through at last, quiet but sharp. "When kids talk about their dads, about the trips they take, or the games they play, I don't know what to say. So I lie." He tightened his grip on the sketchbook, knuckles pale against the worn cover. "I tell them my dad takes me fishing. Or that we shoot hoops together after dinner. They believe me. But none of it's real. Richard's stomach twisted. The wheel blurred through his dampening eyes. He bit down hard, forcing himself to stay silent, to let his son speak. Jordan's next words cut even deeper. His voice dropped, fragile but unshaken. Sometimes I think he doesn't want to be around me because I'm black. Everyone in his world looks different. He doesn't bring me close. Maybe he wishes I wasn't a reminder. The boy's breath hitched, and he gave a small, hollow laugh. One time I told my friends I had two dads. The real one and the one I made up. The imaginary one always shows up. He doesn't care what I look like. Richard's chest burned as though the air had been knocked out of him. He eased the car to the curb, not trusting himself to drive any farther. The old engine idled, steady and cruel against the storm inside him. In the back seat, Jordan rubbed the rabbit's frayed ear between his fingers, staring down at the floor mat. His voice faded almost to nothing. Sorry. I probably said too much. Richard gripped the wheel tighter, his disguise still intact, his voice locked in his throat. He didn't dare answer, not yet. The sedan idled by the curb, its engine humming like a low drumbeat. Richard sat frozen, both hands gripping the wheel, his cap casting a shadow that hid the tears running down his face. Jordan's words still echoed in the confined space, words about lies, about being unwanted, about imagining a father who actually showed up. Richard's chest heaved. For decades he had ruled boardrooms without flinching, but now he couldn't hold steady in front of his own son. His disguise felt suffocating. His voice, when it came, cracked under the weight. No, son, you didn't say too much. Jordan frowned, confused. The driver's voice had changed. It wasn't gruff anymore. It was trembling. Real. Richard's hands shook as he twisted in the seat. Slowly, he lifted the brim of his cap. His face came into view, eyes glistening, cheeks streaked with tears he hadn't let anyone see in years. Jordan froze. His breath caught, his sketchbook slipping slightly from his grip. Dad? Richard nodded, unable to hold back any longer. It's me. I wanted to hear the truth, son. Not the polite answers you give when I'm in a suit. I needed to know what was really in your heart. For a moment, silence stretched between them, raw and unfiltered. Then Richard reached a trembling hand toward the back seat, palm open. I've been blind, Jordan. And I am so sorry. Jordan's small fingers moved slowly, then wrapped around his father's hand, gripping it with a certainty that undid him completely. Richard's hand trembled in the air, but Jordan didn't let go. He climbed forward, clumsy with his backpack snagging on the gearshift, and slid into the front seat beside his father. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't empty anymore, it was thick with honesty, with pain, and with something new, the chance to begin again. Richard wrapped his arms around his son, holding him as if he were afraid to ever let go. Jordan pressed his face into his father's chest, the faint smell of pencil lead and crayon still clinging to his hair. Richard's shoulders shook as tears slipped freely down his cheeks. In all his years chasing wealth, he had never felt so utterly undone. Outside, passers-by slowed, whispering. Isn't that Grant? The billionaire, one said. Another shook their head. Never thought I'd see him like this. Maybe money isn't everything. Richard pulled back just enough to meet his son's eyes. His voice was raw, stripped of every layer of power. No more empty promises. No more next times. From now on, I'll be there, at every game, every recital, every bedtime you want me for. You are my everything, Jordan. And I am sorry it took me this long to say it. Jordan steadied him, his small face weighing whether to believe. Then his lips curved into a smile, tentative at first, then wide enough to light the cab. That's all I ever wanted, Dad. Just you. Richard kissed his son's forehead, a vow sealed not with contracts or signatures, but with tears. Jordan's backpack slid onto his lap as he reached for his sketchbook. He opened it slowly, flipping through the pages filled with heroes. One figure appeared again and again, a tall, strong man with a cape, always standing beside the boy he was meant to protect. Jordan pressed his pencil against the page and scribbled a single word over the figure's chest. For years it had been labeled imaginary. Now he erased it and wrote one word clear and certain: real. Richard's throat closed at the sight. He started the car again, his grip on the wheel lighter, steadier. For the first time in years, he wasn't driving as a billionaire or as a man hiding behind disguises. He was driving as a father. Outside, the whispers of strangers still lingered in the air, people who thought money defined him. But their voices no longer mattered. What mattered sat beside him, clutching a stuffed rabbit with one hand and his sketchbook with the other. As the sedan merged into traffic, the city's glass towers shimmered in the distance. Richard realized those towers weren't his legacy. Jordan was. And so, for the first time in years, he drove not toward a house of stone and steel, but toward something richer. He drove toward home. Richard Grant thought his greatest victories were the towers he built. But in the quiet of a dented sedan, he discovered that no fortune can replace the gift of time. His son didn't need a billionaire. He needed a father. And in that moment, Richard learned what every parent must one day face: love isn't measured in what you provide, it's measured in how present you are. What about you? Do you believe time with family is the greatest wealth of all? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. And if this journey moved you, make sure to subscribe so you never miss the next story that touches the heart and opens the eyes. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.